Felicitations! It is me, Felicia Day, and this is my podcast. Welcome, y'all. It's the 3-week podcast, which seems to be the norm for me lately, but I do my best. I just want to collect as many interesting things that could happen to me, and I am not as interesting as I used to be. Fun. Anyway, I have had a really fun August, half of July. It has been super busy. I've been doing some conventions. I did a really awesome convention in Raleigh. If you're in the area, that is a very cool independently run convention. I love the independently run ones because a lot of the vendors are different. So you always get fun things. I brought back some really cool posters and toys and little stuffed animals for Calliope. And I just like the vibe of them more. I notice when cons get bought up by big corporations, they sort of start to lose their personality. And if anybody ever touches my precious Dragon Con, I will kill them. I'm not going this year just because I want to go with my new book, and it will not be out in time for Dragon Con, which is this Labor Day, and my book is out October 1st. Shout out to my book. Please pre-order it if you like my stuff, FeliciaDayBook.com. It's a creativity book about facing your fears and unleashing your creativity. It's filled with lots of awesome exercises, funny essays, funny drawings. I try to make it a kind of a self-help book for the people who don't need a lot of angels coming down to greet you. Not to poke at Marianne Williamson. I've never actually read any of her books. All her covers really were, they just felt like angel porn a little bit. Very glowy. Anywho, been a super, super busy. I went to Raleigh right after I recorded my last podcast. Last weekend, I went to Outside Lands Festival, and that was fun in that I went up to San Francisco and back in one day. Like, it felt glamorous. Like, I walked on the plane with my purse and my wallet, and that's it. It was real weird. I think the TSA people looked at me real suspicious, but thank goodness, every single time I go through TSA, a person will recognize me, and then I get off the hook most of the time. No cavity searches or extra cavity searches. Yeah. Anywho, so I was supposed to go up Friday or Saturday morning with the baby, and I was going to take my nanny with me because I had the baby this weekend, and I wasn't being able to do the festival, and the producers offered to bring the whole crew up so I could do the Outside Lands Festival. It's a really cool music festival in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, which is gorgeous. The park is gorgeous. And I had never been up there, and I really wanted to do it, but I had baby issues. So we were all going to go. And then I started looking at the itinerary, and I was like, I did not want to punish myself and make myself regret literally existing, because I was going to leave on a 9:30 flight in the morning on Saturday with the baby, spend the night Saturday night, go and perform, but our performance wasn't until 2 p.m. So we had to check out of the hotel. And then so what are we doing with the baby outside a hotel for 4.5 hours? And then flying back that night. So she'd have to have her sleep disrupted in the morning on Saturday, get home too late Sunday night. I'm boring everybody who's single right now, but I'm just telling you, if you ever see somebody with a child, please, please send them some sympathy. It's hard. They don't have fun like you do. You can sit down and watch TV. You can binge it all. You can just go home and be like, I'm going to eat peas for dinner. And you're cool. You don't have to take care of anybody else. Your cat can just, eat the leavings in their bowl if you're not in the mood to feed them that night, These children are intensive. There's so much maintenance and just the logistics of moving them from one. And honestly, I would have brought her because she's actually a very seasoned traveler, Calliope is. But the problem is, getting a kid around with a car, because you can't take an Uber or a Lyft because they don't have car seats. Very rare that you can get a cab with a car seat. And it's illegal to move around with a toddler without them being in a seat. In Europe, you can kind of get away with it in a taxi, but no ride shares, none of that. And unless you take the bus, which is not very convenient in any city in the United States as a tourist, because you don't know where the stops are and where they go and blah, blah, blah. So essentially, you cannot move the child around. Unless you're just in the walking proximity of the hotel, which you are forced to check out of at 11 a.m. So I, at the last minute, scrapped it all. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave on the 7 a.m. on the Sunday and then go back on the 7 p.m. So I was literally in San Francisco for about 7 hours. And we had such a fun time, though. We had a sold out tent. So outside lands like Childish Gambino and like Lil Wayne and a lot of really cool bands that I'm not cool enough to know. Paul Simon, I knew them. I know him. I don't think any of the 20-year-olds at that place knew them. Oh no, sad. But it was really cool. It had a great musical lineup. I wish I not had a child, I would have been up there all weekend watching all the bands. But I just went up to do an hour of comedy with my friends Janet Varney and Colton Dunn, and we had Paul F. Tompkins as a guest, and it was a super fun show. We filled the hour. The audience loved it, and I love performing, you guys. I forgot how much I love performing. So I would love to find a live show I could do and like tour myself. This is my new dream. I don't know what I'm going to do, but one woman show. I'll wear a lot of hats and sing carnival songs. Nope, don't do that. So that was really fun, and I did get home in time. And I had somebody with Calliope for 16 hours. So overtime, and it's all good because getting new fans to the podcast, Voyage to the Stars, is really worth it. I love Voyage to the Stars. I think the season 2 is about to premiere pretty soon, so check it out. You can go to apple.co/voyage to check out all the season 1. There's some really funny, I have to say, the season 2 episodes are actually way funnier than the season 1, even though season 1 is really funny too. Lots of great guest stars. I'll talk about it later when I'm not. Oh my God. I have to tell you, the whole reason I was telling you too much detail about my trip to San Francisco is the story of my life. This is an amazing true story, y'all. And I tried to tweet a little bit about it on Twitter, and Twitter is not a good place. I uninstalled it and Facebook from my phone, and I'm a much happier person, to be honest with you. I check Instagram too much, but you catch up, you get that really like check, you're all caught up and you feel like a sad clown. I'm caught up with life. And so it makes me do the New York Times crossword puzzle or Duolingo or read a book or something on my phone. And I have to tell you, much better use of my time. I do hang out. I hang out with my Discord, actually. I hang out with my Discord on my phone a lot because I'm just like, hey, what's up? The people in my Discord are super funny. Discord.gg/Felicia Day. Lots of websites I'm throwing out here, but I have a busy online life. Yeah. So I landed at like 9:30 at LAX, which is the scourge of all airports. It's terrible. There's no public transport. It is packed 24/7. I'm actually leaving later today to go to New Mexico Expo, Fan Expo, or New Mexico Comic Expo. New Mexico Comic Expo. Jason Momoa is going to be there, Jewel State, lots of really good guests. It's the first year and it's independently run, so I want to support that and support my baby. And so I'm leaving later today, and it's awful. I have to leave like 2.5 hours early, even though I'm quite close to the airport relatively, as the crow flies. But there's no way to get out of LAX, and the rideshare, like the Uber Lyft thing, is a torture. So I was like, I'll go get a taxi. So I went to the taxi stand. Oh, okay. Let me just finish the story, and then I'll talk about Twitter. Anyway, so I went to the taxi stand, and I was like 4th or 5th in line, but there was no taxis around. Then a bunch of planes must have let out, because I'm not kidding, guys. There were about 40 people in line. It snaked up the street and then curled in on itself, right? Clearly a line. So I'm waiting like 20 minutes. I finally get to second in line. So the next taxi is not mine, but the second will be. And an older gentleman, and who, I will be quite frank with you, was wearing a pink polo shirt and shorts and single carry-on, gray hair, looked like a golfer at a Trump golf resort. And I don't mean to say that, except you'll hear the story and you'll be like, oh, makes sense. Anyway, so he came up to the front of the line and was kind of asking the taxi, coordinator person, like, and I kind of noticed him kind of like standing at the front of the line after his question was asked, kind of in a suspicious manner. And I kindly said, excuse me, sir, the line is right behind you, because literally it had curled so far that the line had lapped itself. He dismissed me with a look, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe he's waiting for someone to pick him up here. A cab pulls up. Mind you, there's a gentleman in front of me that's his cab. The pink polo dude literally walks around to the passenger side, gets in the cab, and tries to hand the driver some money. This really happened, y'all. So I'm like, I'm walking past. I'm like so mad. I walk after this guy. He's walking on the street side because clearly he doesn't want to go near the people he's cutting in front of. So I'm like, sir, I'm sorry. Excuse me. You are cutting line. This is unacceptable. You're cutting line. And I do it in that kind of voice. I'm actually recording this during the daytime, which is probably good. Like recording it before bedtime. I'm always so tired and sad. So, and I had just one small cookie, no caffeine. Just for the record, this is me. So my tone of voice is high enough that a lot of other people start noticing, and everybody start like, hey, get out. Excuse me, there's a line. Now everybody's like a little upset, but it's like, are you mistaken? No, clearly not mistaken because he refuses to get out of the cab. For real. I'm like, are you kidding? I literally am saying, can you believe this guy? He's, I would have been like, oh, he's adult. He's older. He's probably like 65, 70. He wasn't even that old, to be honest with you. But I'm sorry, you're not addled or confused when you're trying to hand money to the driver to go. So I'm like getting upset, but I'm like, what am I supposed to do? The guy won't get out of the cab. The taxi coordinator guy goes up to the passenger side and tries to get the guy to get out of the cab. Like, excuse me, you need to get out. They have a conversation. The guy refuses to get out of the cab. People are getting really upset. Finally, the driver gets out of the cab and refuses to drive. And it was like, oh, we're all together, and I tweeted about this online. And of course the Twitter I just said some old guy got in the cab, blah, blah, blah. And people are like, how dare you? And clearly, you can't have any nuance or actual story on Twitter to demonstrate the outrageous behavior of an individual who clearly, by the way he was trying to bribe the cab person by reaching over and reaching through the passenger side window at first and then over the seat to try to give the person some money. This is not his first rodeo, y'all. This is an entitled dude in a polo who clearly just decides that, oh, well, I'm just going to go in front of everybody because I have money. I'm going to bribe the guy. Well, thank God for that taxi driver. Got out of the car and just stood there with his arms crossed. The guy still didn't get out of the car for another 30 seconds and then finally got out, too much to the applause of everybody in line. So anyway, that was, and I have to tell you, I was really polite but firm with the whole time. And I was like, you stood up for yourself. Like before you'd be like, we couldn't do anything about it. But, and I don't mean to say that there was a mob against this guy. People are just like, hey, get out of the car, dude. So you know what? We can fight back in this world against taxi poachers. The entitlement of this guy that he would not get out. He would not be shamed. He would not be, no justice was involved. I mean, this is literally the time we're living in where just people who have been in power are like, I'm entitled to power and I'm not going to give you any. And pink polo. For now on, dudes like this or ladies or any person of any gender, people who behave in such a way that is unacceptable, pink polo. Anyway, that's my story. And hopefully people won't flame me like they did on Twitter for this because I'm justifying the details of this to be able to create some justice in the world. I'm literally right now, I'm thinking, I said something that's going to offend somebody and they're going to be mad. I'm going to have to delete this podcast. This is literally the world that we're living in. And I will be transparent about it. I've tweeted some things that in retrospect, because people pointed them out on Twitter in a kind way, I learned from that incident. The other day, I tweeted something about some guy who was hogging the family bathroom, and I was trying to be funny about it. And, I didn't phrase it well, probably. I will give you that. I used the word illegally using it because I was in tongue in cheek because it was a single, guy coming out with an Us Weekly in his hand, all right, with a stink of poop coming out from behind him. And so I was waiting outside with my child because there was no changing table in the public restroom. But a lot of people tweeted at me kindly and said, hey, there are reasons why people need to use the family restroom without their family with them. And I was like, thank you. And I deleted the tweet. And I was like, great. I grew because of that. I didn't grow because of the people like, delete Felicia Day. Whoa, she's over the line. Just people turning on me in a way that I was literally afraid because I've been gone after online in a lot of ways back in the day. And so, I don't share as much online because even one negative comment kind of triggers me. Not to say that, I should be able to tweet whatever I want to tweet and have views that are, not cool. and share them. Well, it's just a really, it's an interesting time to be alive. And I can just say that I am less spontaneous because I second guess everything from 10,000 points of view, which, is that a bad thing? I don't know. I don't like getting yelled at. I do appreciate people educating me in a way where I see the world differently, or I see from somebody else's perspective. And if my humor falls flat, I will gladly recognize that. But I will never back down for pink polo. Pink polo, go to H. All right. So that was that was literally the best thing that happened in the last 3 weeks. Not best, but just most notable. Everything else was pretty great. I finished my book completely. I forgot. I don't know if I mentioned, but that I sent my second notes pass got lost by UPS and showed up 2 weeks late. So that was fun. So I had to make up for all that. I did a third pass. My book is kind of complicated because the layout, there's exercises in it where you guys can insert things. Like it'll be an exercise, like list 10 things you did as a child that you really love and other funnier, versions of that. And so in order to kind of lay the book out properly, because the exercises are as I talk versus like grouped at the end of a chapter, which is a normal kind of like book like this, I wanted the book to be a dialogue. And 2 weeks ago, I recorded the audiobook, which is odd for a book that a lot of it is interactive. But that's what I had a passion for the format. And my publisher, thank goodness, my wonderful editor, Lauren, she backed me up on it. She's like, okay, great, try it. And let's see if we can make it work. And her team was so great in making all the complicated layout issues there's like 100 illustrations in it and all this stuff, funny, things like that. They made it work in a really cool way. But I had to record it as an audiobook. So for you audiobook people, I think it'll be a really cool experience. I will be doing the prompts verbally, and then there will be a PDF of about 40 pages where some of the exercises have graphic elements that you have to, have printed out to do them. And then there's a couple of really funny graphics that are just funny punchlines that I was like, we got to put this in here. So you won't get the complete book experience in that some of the graphics won't quite be there. I kind of verbalize them instead, so you won't get the visual gags of that. But I think it'll actually be a really fun experience because it's kind of like listening to this podcast. I'm talking to you and I'll be like, so what about you? How did you deal with anxiety when you were a kid or whatever? So I'm excited about it. That's that. So that was I feel like I'm moving on in life, you guys. I had a real low point. The first 6 months of this year was really, really challenging for me, as you guys know. Since I stopped taking my thyroid medicine, my hair has gotten a little bit thinner, but my skin is drier. But I have not added any mental problems, no depression or issues or weight gain, so that's nice. And I kind of feel more like myself. I'm sleeping a little bit better, and I just feel like I was in a state for about a year where I just had things in process but never like actually going. So I was waiting for contracts to close. I was pitching shows, and when you pitch a television show, and I'm doing quite a bit of this right now, it just takes a long time to get ready for these pitches. So for 6 months, you're working for free. I mean, producers, if you didn't know this, even if I sell a show as a producer, I don't get paid until after the show is greenlit. So all the development, all the working on the deck, all working with the writer, developing with the network. That's why producers are so greasy and slimy, I've found. Because they have to have 25,000 projects to go because, they might have one actually picked up. So that's an interesting job I've chosen to pursue a little bit, but I work with people I love, so it's fine. But when you're a producer, you're kind of like working with the writer to sort of like hone the pitch. There's a certain format that you do that if you guys are interested, I could totally talk to you more about. It's kind of, it definitely isn't like cookie cutter, but there are certain like things that you're expected to talk about in a pitch. Like, if it's a fiction pitch, there's like, you'd have to talk about the characters and where they'll go across the season 1 and what future seasons will be. And like, really breaking down why this is a show that needs to be made now. I mean, I just told you exactly how to do a pitch. I don't even need to do another episode. So, but really the first 6 months of this year was just kind of waiting and not acting. And like, I realized that, the biggest highlight of like those 6 months was I did a brand deal with Ubisoft to do some Ghost Recon Breakpoint videos. And I have to tell you, it was the most fun that I had in a while because I hadn't made videos in a while. I got to edit it all myself. I did it kind of janky, but I did it my way. It was all mine. I created it. And the same feeling about my book finally being done and like it's going to get out there. And I did the very best I could. And I really hope it resonates with people. But for me as an artist at the time, I did the very best book of that kind that I could. And I'm happy with it. And I think, that's just who I am as a person. And knowing yourself as an artist and a creator is very, very important to get satisfaction in the world. So now it feels like all the stuff I've been working on, kind of setting the groundwork for is happening. I have all these pitch meetings for all sorts of projects that I hope you guys will see next year. And I'm writing a project as well right now that you will actually probably see next year. So it's all good, man. I feel light and airy. And also I'm working with my old friend Ryan Koppel, who used to run Geek and Sundry for a bit. And so we have all these new things that we're working together. And I think, I felt a little lonely for a while, not working on stuff, because I was used to being surrounded by people either working on their stuff or them helping me on mine. And I think, especially being a mom, it's been kind of isolating. And so, it's all good. That was a lot of talking. I also started seeing a new therapist. And I have to tell you, I walked in, and I'm not going to tell you my junk, but after the first session, I was like, oh my God, you just told me 5 things that I never realized, but they make sense. So I think if you guys are having issues, seek some help. Just having somebody to talk to and get a perspective on your issues. I'm not kidding. Within an hour, I was like, oh, you're right. I never thought that's a pattern. And it all kind of stems from childhood stuff. And you're just like, whoa, you're a swami. Better than a psychic. Better than my palm reading. Anyway. Let's do a little consumptions. I watched a couple of TV shows. I don't know if I mentioned Blown Away. It's a glass blowing competition. I think I mentioned this last time. I just still can't get it in my mind because I'll go by glass studios. I'm like, I know how you did that kind of. So interesting and fascinating, and just appreciating artists who do something I could never do. Highly recommend that. I also started The Boys, which now you guys, I was a little reluctant to watch this show. Eric Kripke, of course, created Supernatural and is behind The Boys. But I was it looked very aggro, man aggro. It looked very masculine energy kind of going on. And it also, I'm like, superheroes, really? Because I'm not the biggest superhero fan, y'all. I'm kind of the tropes of it all kind of bore me. And of course I'll go see every superhero movie, but I'm not just drooling for reading or consuming superhero stuff because it's very familiar to me. And I am a person who needs novelty. I don't need comfort, I need novelty. But The Boys got both things right. The pilot is so great. It's very violent. It is not for kids. Please do not show your kids The Boys. But it is it basically showed me a different kind of superhero, a different angle on superheroes. It is so brilliant. And the direction is so great, and the writing and the characters, I highly recommend it. It is just, between that and Good Omens, I'm like, well, is Amazon winning my heart now? Yeah. So, let's see. My book consumption was a little bit down. I did finish The Age of Wonder, How the Romantic Generation Discovered the Beauty and Terror of Science by Richard Holmes. It was long, y'all, but I learned, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about science. I learned a lot about how wonder is so important when you're creating and how to capture that. It's talking about a time in history where people didn't really know how things worked. They didn't understand electricity. They didn't understand viruses or anesthesia. People would literally get their limbs cut off with no anesthesia at all, except for some rum. It's a time when they only knew there were 4 or 5 planets. So if you can imagine a world where literally, I think the internet kind of did this for us about 10 years ago, where you're being introduced to new ways of existing in ways you never could think possible. And so I really love this book. It was dry. It was a little dry at times, but the stories of some of these people, the author humanizes them in a really cool way, and it makes them seem like the rock stars of a generation. Science was hot. It was sexy to be a scientist. You could just see, one of these scientists getting up there and talking about thermodynamics and getting some courses thrown on the stage. You know what I'm saying? So it was really fascinating. And also, I love the angle of this book in that it highlights how the science affected the romantic artists like Keats and Shelley and Byron and Coleridge and all these artists, like these who were equally, like, we think of them as stuffy, but they were hot. They were like they were like the rock stars of the day, right? The poets. So highly recommend it, especially if you want like a really dense nonfiction tome. I also read a book that I had mentioned before. I finished Kameron Hurley's The Light Brigade. Highly recommend. I love Kameron Hurley. This author is like super edgy. The other series is about this sort of like almost Red Sonja character, but it's like this weird alternate planet that has big bugs and like weird tech. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to get into. Once you get into it, it's like hardcore awesome. So this is kind of like a futuristic sci-fi, kind of Starship Troopers kind of. It's really great. And also it's about capitalism. It's about how corporations, it's kind of cyberpunk in that it's like bad corporations are running things and they're bad. And I think we're definitely in a moment where the power is going to these conglomerates over individuals or individuals who own conglomerates. And it's society is centralizing in a very uncomfortable way. And I think all these sci-fi is kind of like showing that right now in a really, really cool way. I highly recommend this book if you like gritty science fiction. I'm also currently reading, I read Sweep of the Blade by Ilona Andrews because I think I mentioned this. It was so good. I read 2 others in this series. It's popcorn, y'all. It's sci-fi fantasy popcorn about vampires in space. It's just good. I can't even complain about it. It's like, you know what? You want some space vampires? Here. It's really, really good. And I'm currently in the middle of reading a book called Hollow Kingdom by Kira Jane Buxton. And it's a book set in Seattle. And it's about a zombie apocalypse, but from the eyes of a crow and a dog. So it's from the animal's eyes, looking at a zombie apocalypse kind of thing. It's so funny and fascinating. It's a first book by a first-time author. And I got it off of like a preview website, and I bought it. I pre-ordered it. I saw a description on a preview website, and I ordered it because I was like, oh, that's intriguing. Very funny, very cool. Just all these pop culture references and being in the head of all these different animals is so fun. I normally don't like animal books because I know that somebody's going to die. I'm not quite finished. I'm sure someone we love is going to die, but I love this book. It's for adults because it has a lot of swears. So just a heads up. And the other book I have ready to read on my Kindle is called This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone. I think I might have mentioned this last time, but I still have not gotten back to it. I will. And there's another book that I have. So the next couple books I'll be reading is that The Time War and Trick Mirror by Gia Tolentino, Reflections on Self-Delusion. And I think it's a bunch of essays by a really fantastic journalist that I picked up because of one of the Welcome to Night Vale people highly recommended it and said, I've had this on pre-order. I actually asked for an ARC. He was like, I asked for an ARC and I never do that. So I'm trying to expand my reading, y'all. Like space vampire fantasy romance is awesome. But I feel like in order to come back to the fantasy and sci-fi that I write, I need to expand myself a little bit. And I talk about this in my book a little bit. You got a bit uncomfortable to get complicated. That is in my book, quote unquote. All right. So let's do a couple questions because I'm clearly lonely because I'm talking a lot to myself. We have a couple questions. Stephanie Hudson asks, Huston at Huston 500. Are you looking forward to new games this fall? Borderlands 3 or Death Stranding? Or next year's Dying Light 2? These are all good questions. Borderlands 3, I might try out. I get really tense when I play FPS, but Borderlands is kind of like that hybrid of FPS that I can maybe get into. So yes, on Borderlands 3, Death Stranding and Dying Light, maybe. I don't have a PS. I think one of those is on PS4 exclusively. I don't really use my PS4, y'all. So I only play PC, and I actually have a PC being built by somebody and sponsored by a company because I got offered a lot of free rigs when I tweeted, but I wanted to go and pay someone to make a computer for me, and the company gave me the parts, and I can pay this individual because he is a self-employed person, and I want to support independent contractor people and celebrate the idea that you can make a computer yourself which I didn't have the time to do by myself, but he could do it for me. I will talk more about that later to plug the company who gave me the parts. Hashtag sellout. I am looking forward to a lot of interesting games that are coming up, which are more indie. The non-indie ones I'm excited about are WoW Classic. I'm literally on the fence about whether I even started up, y'all. I don't know. And Ghost Recon Breakpoint, because genuinely I do love that game. And I want to play co-op and want to stream some co-op with my brother because honestly, just getting in vehicles and just driving them around, I don't even play the game. I do some, you guys, if you watch me stream on Twitch, you know that I love clearing forts on Assassin's Creed. Like Ghost Recon Breakpoint is basically the modern day equivalent of that, but you can do it with 3 other people in real life, which is super fun. I've only played with my brother, but I can imagine if we got 4 people, woohoo, super fun. But the smaller games I'm looking forward to are, well, I played Astrologaster, and so I just streamed that. Super fun game about reading. It's a historical musical game where you read the stars on people and kind of tell their fortunes, but it's this really fascinating, everything is kind of like historically accurate characters being thrown into this video game, and it's super fun. If you want to check it out, I just streamed it. There's a new game that just came out called Dicey Dungeons, and I think it came out last week, but I am downloading that to play. I wish it was on my phone because I'm going on a plane, but whatever. Also, Islanders is another game, and Sunless Skies. So those are 3 that were recently released that I really want to play. Sunless Skies is a sequel to another game, Sunless Seas. I can't even describe this game to you. It's very kind of insular and complicated and Lovecraftian and weird. I think this new one, you play you drive an airship, but the mechanics of the game were so unique that I really want to play it. So although I was going to plan on streaming Assassin's Creed DLCs, I might try some Sunless Skies. There's also a game called Indivisible that's coming out, which is like a side-scrolling RPG that looks really fun and bright and colorful. And I just saw something on like Rock, Paper, Shotgun or something about a game called Moving Out, which is essentially like Overcooked for moving houses, which I'm like, oh, perfect Felicia game. So those are the ones I'm looking forward to. I mean, I don't look forward to games as much anymore because, like, God knows I can't even peel out 3 hours a week to play them anymore. This has been a little bit of a challenging year because I've been doing too many weekend, either performances or cons or trips out of town. And so I would love to get to a point where I can stream a little bit more and just put a dent in some games. So thanks, Stephanie Huston. That's how you pronounce that. Okay. Coilette says, in the last podcast, you mentioned quick, good results on thyroid meds. I just started taking them about 2 weeks ago and have not noticed any changes. How long did it take you to notice a change? Coilette, congratulations. I don't know what symptoms you're looking to change, but I think it takes about 2 to 3 weeks. So I know that it takes at least 2 weeks. And so just keep taking it and go back in and test your results. Your doctor can guide you. I suggest talking to your doctor if some of the symptoms you're having are not working. But I know that they tell you to use a month or 2. Usually they change your meds and then they're like, come back in 2 months. So it does take a little bit while. And also, this is a hormone. You'd have to think about it. And now I am more appreciative than anything about hormonal issues affecting the brain, the feelings, and the body. So good luck. I am not a doctor. Just want to say that again. Okay. And last question, because, gosh, I've been talking a while. This is a good question, though. Kayla Rayla asks from Discord, I have a question about mom brain and creativity. Ooh, fun. I am also a new mother, almost exactly 6 months behind you on this insane roller coaster journey of trying to keep a tiny human from self-destructing themselves. Good luck. Precious journey of motherhood. I have been a writer, mostly freelance, for years, and also have a fiction book started. My problem is that mom brain is a real thing for me. Like, I honestly cannot remember words sometimes. Looking at a stroller, I can only think car seat, and I just generally do not think I'm as creative or clever anymore, even joking around with friends. I'm struggling to pick up with my book again. I fear that I've lost my writing spark. I'm still freelancing articles, but with a set topics, it's a different story. I also struggle with overcoming the idea that my writing style is different from some of my favorite authors, and I know I will fundamentally never be able to produce similar content to them, so it feels inferior. Do you feel like mom brain happened to you? Were there any exercises, books, or apps that you recommended to whip your brain back into ship shape? Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, Kayla Rayla. 120 million% I know about mom brain. I have to say that it wasn't until I weaned the baby, and I'm saying weaned, meaning 4 months out from weaning, that I finally felt any sort of coherence, or even slightly remember the spark of ambition that I used to have. And it was, I think that caused a lot of my depression, because honestly, that engine inside of me of like, what can I make next? What can I do? What's new? What can I do with my life? Where am I going? Like the kind of unknown excitement of jumping into things head first was part of my identity in a way. And I think for me, and none of these things I'm saying in general about every mother and parent is different. So this is just me. I think the hormones of weaning and just kind of getting my body back, and just having just the logistical burden of having something that you have to take care of 24/7 and keep constant contact with and nurture and show the world, that's a big deal, y'all. It is so hard. Like, people are like, oh, you say goodbye to your old life. And like for the first 6 months of the baby, I was like, fine. I'm doing everything. And then it really started setting in, the insomnia, the kind of also dealing with how people treat you differently as a person. Because in your mind, you're still the same person. You just have all these different burdens that you can't go out at night as much. You can't kind of drop everything and do something spontaneous. You don't have as much time to consume things. So you kind of like fall off the wayside with the other people who can kind of binge 4 shows a week, right? So you kind of feel like you are being left behind, even though in your mind that you're just the same person. So it's this weird identity shift. Also, and I think for creativity, so for the mom brain, I would assure you that you're still inside there. You still have who you are. I don't necessarily look at myself as being as quick-witted or as ambitious necessarily, or like driven as much as I used to be. And I've had to kind of wrap my head around a new version of myself. And in reinventing myself as a whole person, not trying to Frankenstein, okay, I'm a mom and I'm taking care of a baby, but I'm also everything I used to be. That has been a very long process. And I think, when you read my book, if you read it, Kayla, I think my working through my own issues over the last 2 years has been very reflected in the book, because the book starts out with rebuilding yourself as a person and kind of figuring out who you are and what you want to say and what your passions are. And then it goes on to deal with the enemies against your creativity. And so, you'll see a direct kind of like linear thing of what I'm talking about in the book, as I tried to work through who am I and what do I have to say in the world in a new way. Because if you try to stay stuck in an old version of yourself, you're doing a disservice to what you could become. And that's what we all have to learn. It's the same thing with writing. Like, you're talking about like struggling that you've lost your writing spark. You're overcoming the idea that your writing style is different from other people. Of course it's different. It's only yours, Kayla. No one else can write like you. And so what you're looking at, and I think the pressure is, what you're looking at is the end result of people's work. You're not looking at the struggle that they themselves have to go through and the feelings of imposter syndrome and struggles to get through. You don't know how long it took other people to write books. And it doesn't matter, because you can only write a book the way you can write a book. And I think getting really solid in your heart and set in yourself and honoring yourself as a creator versus like always like, why aren't you different in your creator? Well, that's just mean, right? You're just telling yourself, well, the way you are isn't good enough, so be better. That doesn't help us be free and playful and be able to create, because really creativity comes from that spark you're talking about, that freedom. And especially when you have a kid, like, the stakes get real high, man. You can maybe like, I'm just going to go freelance for a while and not worry about money because I'll just live off my savings. No, you're planning for this person's future. And so that sort of like, I'm going to just take a carefree night off and walk in the park and just dream. You feel self-centered, right? You feel like, I can't do this. I mean, I'm sure it happens to dads too, because we have this societal thing like, oh yeah, as a dad, you don't have to necessarily be around your kid all the time, but you better get working and provide sustenance, which is also very destructive to fathers' relationships with their kids, but also as a person, right? So everything gets serious and adult. And so what I would encourage you is to find those sparks of joy where you can, and treat yourself and treat your creator as someone who needs to be just as nurtured as your baby. So if you can just peel off 1 hour a week to just show your creator, hey, I care about you too. I mean, just imagine like your creator is an older kid and like you have this new kid and you're like ignoring the old kid because it's like, well, you're there. I'm used to you. No, you have to maintain everything equally. So that would be my advice to you is that, it's really hard to get back on an old project. And I would encourage you just write really bad. Like literally, if you can peel off a certain amount of time every day to just write badly, then you'll get over this hump. You'll find the fun in it again. And really just your job is to sit down, write bad and fun. So just write and just throw it out. It's okay. That is a better use than your time than going on Twitter, right? So I'm talking a lot about issues that I talk in my book about. So I would encourage you to pre-order my book or get it when it's out or just listen to this podcast. That's fine too. But my heart is with you because it is hard. It is super hard to do what we're doing. And especially as creators, you have to be selfish to be a creator. And selfishness is not encouraged or that productive when you have a tiny little human who's literally just learning how to navigate and wants to pull everything down on their head and murder themselves because kids. So hard. I have to say now that I'm out of weaning and the kid Calliope is so much more self-sufficient and we do things together in a fun way, I'm finding so many fun ways to explore the world with her that actually is getting my creator alive again. So when we go to the dinosaur museum, I'm learning something. I don't know about like the iguanodon's like, thumb was used as like to open fruit. I didn't know that. So then, when the baby stage was over, that's why I don't think I can do it again because I'm like, I can't go through the sort of like, I need to take care of this precious thing because I know every day and every input into their body is forming their brain. But oh my gosh, let's do something together and not just take for me. And so now it's maybe not an exchange. It is an exchange because her joy is my joy a lot and we can enjoy things together. All right, that was really long. Again, single people, sorry. But Kayla, just ask me some questions, singles, or like babyless people. Hashtag felicitations. Felicitations? Hashtag felicitations on Twitter. Just post it, and Sean Santalooky, my wonderful mod, will collect those, and I pull 2 or 3 out of the bin every week. I think we're done, and I'm really excited to see some of you in New Mexico. I have book tour plans that will be announced in about, I think, a week or so. So stay tuned to my Twitter and my Instagram and all that stuff. I will be doing probably a 7 or 8 book tour. Book tour? I don't know. I'll be doing a book tour in the first 2 weeks of October. And I will be at New York City Comic Con. So that will be basically it's just a free signing of only the book. So they'll be selling the book on site and I will be signing that book. So don't bring any huge posters because they are not allowing that. It is just the book. Or just come say hi. That's fine too. Shout out to felicitations.fandom.com where you can find a show notes for any of my podcasts. Sean Santalooky lists all the books and all the other recommendations that I have for this podcast. So felicitations.fandom.com. Please go to Apple and subscribe to and leave a review if you can, if you like this podcast. And I will try to get you another podcast out in 2 weeks. All right. See you later. Bye.